And can you turn that from my face, please? Sir, you have credentials? Those are your credentials? You mind turning the camera that way? I'm not filming you. I don't give you permission to film me, especially if I'm not filming you, okay, sir?
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Draw Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, former police officer. Today's video comes to us from the YouTube channel I Don't Speak, and it depicts an auditor using a really unique and I think very effective way of doing a First Amendment audit. Now, the source video is pretty long, so I've made some edits just for the purposes of our discussion, but you should head over to their channel, watch the videos in their entirety, and give them credit for sharing. With that said, let's get into it. So in February of this year, the YouTuber I Don't Speak executed a First Amendment audit at what I assume is a senior living center in Brooksville, Florida. Prior to making a 911 call to request law enforcement, the people who work at the home attempted to challenge the auditor and try to force him to stop videotaping and give them an explanation for what he was doing. Let's watch how that went.
Can I ask why you're videotaping?
You can't smoke up here.
Okay. Answer's no, I guess.
You can't smoke up here. You gotta go downstairs.
So it's I don't know. He doesn't look like he's from the press, but he's got a tripod like cameras that his phone is pointing directly at me.
Tell me inside. You get Christina inside.
Tell him what?
He's videotaping everybody.
I'm on the phone with my executive director, and she's asking me to tell you to leave the property.
No, my residence needs to come.
He's not responding, so we just call the police.
Call the cop.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Yeah, videotape.
Yeah. Hey, come on. We gotta go inside.
You don't have permission for that?
Go get her inside, please. Christine, let's go. Inside.
He's videotaping me, he's not videotape him. Got that covered. And this is the gentleman right there. Thank you, sir.
Hernando County Sheriff's Office, Operator 44, the sign's recorded.
Hi, this is Alicia Hewitt. I'm the business office manager at Elevated Estates at 307 Howell Avenue. There's a gentleman standing out on the front of our property just videotaping, and I walked up to him and asked him if I could help him. He didn't respond. He has a camcorder, and he's just pointed it at me. It says press on his jacket, but he doesn't look like no channel or anything. Okay. So I asked him to leave our property because it's private property. He didn't respond. We'd like to trespass him.
Okay. What's a good phone number to reach you?
3276.
Okay. And what was your name?
My name is Alicia. My last name's Hewitt, and I'm the business office manager.
Okay, so you said he's standing on the property videotaping?
He's like on, right, not under the underpass on the sidewalk, and he's just moving from side to side and videotaping our residents that live here and looks like the front of the building. I mean, he's not hurting anybody, but, the residents feel like, why is he videotaping us? So I went out there and I asked him what he was doing. Could I help him? He didn't respond. He just pointed the camera at me.
Is he white, black, or Hispanic?
He's white. He's about 5'8".
How old
He's
is
wearing, in his 50s maybe, wearing short pants.
What color?
Brown in color or gray. Brown or gray.
Okay,
Yeah.
what color shirt?
And I don't know, it looks like a T-shirt with a vest over it, and on the left side it says press on a black kind of patch.
Okay, any vehicles? Did you see him get in and out of a vehicle or bicycle, anything?
No, I did not.
Okay, I will have this put in. And what is this, are they just meeting you like in the main office?
What stands out interaction, if you can call it that, is that people are so driven by their own egos and insecurities that it's completely beyond their ability to comprehend what the First Amendment is. In fact, I'd go so far as to say is they don't really care about the First Amendment at all, or the Constitution, or the law for that matter. All they really care about is being in control, as evidenced by the situation here. They claim property for their own that isn't theirs. They'll say whatever they need to say to get the police there, and they often give misleading information. The guy who walks up with the female employee who is supposed to be the muscle, or whatever he was supposed to, make some comment about how he didn't give permission for the auditor to film him, but he didn't hesitate to pull out his own phone and do the exact same thing he was accusing the auditor of doing. And he was actually standing on the private property when he did it. He wasn't on public property until the very end. Notice also that the people outside are doing their thing. They're paying no attention to the guy on the sidewalk. They weren't afraid because they were being filmed. It appeared that many of them didn't even notice. They were just enjoying the day. The employees here are the ones who actually caused alarm. They are the ones who caused an issue to the extent that there was an issue. Another thing of note, if we go back to the video, there are actually a couple of parts that were pretty alarming. There are two separate parts of the short video where employees are aggressively and rudely demanding that the residents do certain things. One female employee is heard very aggressively telling someone, hey, you can't smoke up here. And when they realize that they can't intimidate the auditor into leaving, you can actually hear another employee, or it could be the same employee, demanding that the people get up and go inside. So think about this for a second. These people live in an assisted living or a senior home where their life is likely not as fulfilling as it used to be, or even as fulfilling as yours or mine. They're out enjoying what is certainly a limited amount of freedom to be outside and take in a beautiful Florida day, and that has to be disrupted because there's a guy there with a camera. Now, it's not the guy who disrupts their ability to enjoy the day. Instead, it's the people who are charged with their well-being, the people who have a duty to give them the best quality of life that they can possibly get at this stage of where they are in life. So because someone who has authority over them is a narcissist and their ego and insecurity can't deal with the fact that they can't control everything, the guy with a camera that literally no one noticed except employees has to be the reason or the catalyst for why these people's lives have to be negatively impacted. It almost makes you wonder if the reason they don't want anyone filming has more to do with how they treat their residents than anything else. I'd certainly come unglued if someone was talking to my mama the way these people were talking to their residents, but I digress. But maybe, just maybe, that's why it's important that these things are able to go on, because if a member of the press did take an interest in some report of improper treatment at a nursing home, it's the First Amendment that protects their right to go and film the outside of that location to see whether anything improper is happening. And I'd shudder to think of what happens behind closed doors if we're able to see that when they didn't even think about whether or not that would be a problem. So the only reason the public knows about certain things like this is because of the First Amendment, is because of the press's right to go do investigative journalism. Regardless of whether you think that these people that are doing it independently are legitimate or not, that's not up to anyone to decide. That's a constitutionally protected right. What's even worse is that it takes exactly half a second to look at the building from the auditor's vantage point, walk back to the public sidewalk, and tell that the way the windows are made creates such a reflection that it's hard to see anything going on inside at all. Now that doesn't matter from a legal perspective, but if this was really about the discomfort of the privacy of the residents, you'd think it might occur to at least one of these people to walk out to the sidewalk and take a look at what you can see with the naked eye, as well as what you could see if you used a camera on a cell phone to zoom in, and figure out very quickly that there isn't an issue here. This is a classic example of someone allowing their ego to make something that isn't a problem at all their problem to solve, and the worst of it is that it's usually on behalf of someone else who didn't have an issue with it to begin with. And of course, the police get called, just like they always do, and then we get to see how that interaction went.
Hello. How you doing, sir? Sir? The reason why I'm coming to you is because they're not appreciative of you recording them. And can you turn that from my face, please? Sir, you have credentials? Those are your credentials? You mind turning the camera that way? I'm not filming you. I don't give you permission to film me, especially if I'm not filming you, okay, sir? Go ahead. You can turn the camera away, sir. I appreciate that. Alright, sir. This ain't credentials. Where are the credentials saying you work for any kind of press? Okay. Regardless, I suggest, okay, from the sidewalk over, okay, don't get on their property because then you will be trespassed from this facility, okay? Just to let you know. If the sidewalk is fine, I can't do nothing about that. It's the freedom of walking on the sidewalk, okay? But going on to the property will get you trespassed. And if you violate that, if you call on their property again, you're subject to arrest. Just to let you know, okay? You understand? All right. Have a good day. That's a fake press. Can I see the paperwork again? You mind if I see your paperwork again? Sir? Your credentials? Show me your badge again one more time. Okay. Alright. Thank you.
So I don't think the deputy did a terrible job here, with the exception of his gross misunderstanding of whether the auditor needed his permission to exercise the First Amendment. One thing I do want to draw your attention to, though, you'll notice that Deputy Rodriguez has a couple of pins on his uniform. One says FTO, which stands for Field Training Officer. That means exactly what you think it means. It means that he's training people, and he also thinks that he can order people not to film him in a public place in the course of his official duties. That's a problem. The second one of significance is the one that has the initials CIT. That stands for Crisis Intervention Training. CIT training is a specialized course, generally 40 hours in length, where officers are trained to detect when someone may be suffering from mental health crisis. And those officers are generally better communicators, and they're generally more conscientious officers. Now, some departments have made it mandatory, so it's hard to tell whether Deputy Rodriguez took this training voluntarily or whether he was ordered to do it or mandated to do it by his department. But either way, he should be given some credit for the fact that he didn't choose to escalate this beyond his silly and unreasonable demands that the auditor turn the camera off. It's also possible that Deputy Rodriguez was pushing to see if he could get a reaction in light of the fact that the guy was remaining silent, because he wasn't so out of touch with what he could and couldn't do that he tried or threatened to take some enforcement action. But he still didn't hesitate to make himself look like a clown on video. And then, of course, none of these encounters can end without some police officer making some silly directive and telling people to do things that they clearly weren't going to do in the first place, but that's just part of the game at this point. What I really thought was interesting about this particular auditor was the tactic of saying absolutely nothing. So often we hear auditors say, "I don't answer questions," and they think that that is them being knowledgeable about the Fifth Amendment, but the heart of the Fifth Amendment is the right to remain silent. The actual questioning part is certainly an extension of the Fifth Amendment, but to truly exercise your Fifth Amendment right is to say nothing at all, with the possible exception of a verbal notice that you're invoking the right to remain silent and you will not answer any questions without an attorney present. But a lot of times auditors say, "I don't answer questions," but they don't say anything about having an attorney present. And if I'm being honest, the typical auditor phraseology of "I don't answer questions" is good, and it puts the officer on notice that they have someone at least more knowledgeable than the average citizen about the rights. It's not a proper invocation of a person's Fifth Amendment right, especially considering that we often hear the same auditors turn right around and make a bunch of statements to the cops, which they do in a combative way while still giving information because they've convinced themselves that they know how to handle the police. Some do, and that's true, but most actually don't. And they make the statement, "I don't answer questions," without anchoring it to anything to do with an attorney or remaining silent. Remaining silent and not answering questions are two different things. One notes that you're not going to be able to get any information out of me at all, and the other one notes that I'm not answering questions, I'll ask the questions, I'll control the conversation. So in that way, they're actually doing kind of the same thing that the police are and trying to control the narrative of the encounter. By watching someone truly remain silent, you can see the substantial difference between audits where a lot of information is given freely and one where no information is given whatsoever. Here's why the difference matters. Suppose you're an auditor who believes they're well versed in constitutional law. Your practice is that you say, "I don't answer questions," but then you do make a bunch of spontaneous statements that will later be used as exceptions to the hearsay rules if you're arrested, because the statements were considered to be excited utterances. And so where normally a statement that's made out of court, that's offered for the truth of the matter asserted in the statement, can't be used in court because it's hearsay, because of the fact that it was unprompted and it's said in the heat of the moment and it's said without provocation, the auditor will probably have their statements come in against them as excited utterances. Or in the alternative, the auditor makes a bunch of statements that in themselves aren't really threatening, but the officer uses them. They get just enough to use as justification to escalate or to take certain enforcement actions. I've even recently seen a situation where an auditor was provoking and antagonizing law enforcement and then threw their cigarette butt on the ground and were surprised when they got a ticket for littering. I mean, on some level, you have to ask, like, what do you expect to happen? Now contrast that with what we see here. How could an officer make out a case of threatening behavior from an auditor who says absolutely nothing at all? What is threatening about having a camera in public? See, there's not any aggressive behavior. There's also no language or no behavior that would make you an unlikable or unsympathetic plaintiff should you have to sue and have your hopes of prevailing rest on how much the jury likes you. You're just there. You're being non-threatening and you're exercising your rights, which is what protected public photography under the First Amendment is supposed to be. In closing, I just think this style of auditing is really interesting and I think it's very effective. It really hamstrings the cops as it relates to their ability to find any justification to take an enforcement action against the person. I mean, if you do nothing and all you're doing is being quiet and taking pictures, they're really going to have a hard time justifying grabbing you, slamming you to the ground, trying to get you to ID or anything else. I think it's equated to playing chess, and it forces the officers to be less emotional in the way they handle the situations. As an aside, I don't know how many of these interactions it's going to take in order for law enforcement agencies to train their officers on public photography, but it feels to me like things are starting to change just a little bit. Not a lot. It's incremental, but incrementalism is powerful. I think it's possible we see more states abolishing qualified immunity over the next decade, and politicians are starting to notice how much harm is done to community relations when they have their officers looking like complete morons on camera, and it's broadcast over YouTube to millions upon millions of people. But at least this deputy understood the most important part of the law, which was that there isn't much he could do to a person filming on public property. So I give him a C. Although I do take his statement to be a little passive-aggressive. Well, I can't really do anything to you. It's not, no, you have a right to do that. It's, no, I'd probably do something to you if I could, but I really can't in this particular situation. So on second thought, he actually gets a C- for being petty. That's all for this one, guys. Thanks so much for taking time away from your family to check out my video. Please remember to like and subscribe and leave me a comment about what you think about this auditor's skill set. Also check out some of the other videos on the channel and leave me a comment there. Until I see you again, take care, always film your interactions with the police, and keep your evidence to yourself.